we need to put this in this. So we got to swap out those for those. And we're going to do it right here. So moving right along with our Chaos Theory Camaro build here, obviously we want to get the engine in here. So in order to do that, we're going to have to get rid of these old V6 engine mounts and replace them with some LS swap mounts. As with the torque arm, I decided to go with UMI. Now, I want to clarify a few things. First off, I made a little mistake here, guys. I thought I was ordering the F-body only mounts. What I actually ordered was kind of a universal mount. These are made to work with F bodies and G bodies, so that's why there's so many holes in them. I've went through according to the instructions. We're going to use this slot, and this slot for the F body mount. The other slots are for G body mounts. Now here's where things get a little weird, because I don't know what UMI was doing here. They actually botched the instructions a little bit. So I don't know if you guys can see this, but they actually have in the instructions here for the GM F body, they have the K member flipped around. They've got this labeled as the passenger side, this labeled as the driver's side. It's actually the other way around. This is the passenger side, this is the driver's side, and the instructions are printed really, it's not a very good photo. So I'm gonna have to kind of figure this out. We'll figure it out together, make sure we get these things mounted in the right holes, because come on, UMI, I mean, you can do better than this. Something else that is not mentioned in the instructions is where to set your bolt. See, this allows some adjustment fore and aft, and it doesn't really say where to set your bolts if you just want the engine in the stock location. Now, what was mentioned is it says that these mounts allow mounting the engine in the stock location or moving it up to 1 inch back. So I'm assuming that what we're going to do is, once we get these mounts on, we're going to slide them all the way toward the front of the car. That should put the engine in the stock location, and you know, that's kind of where we want it, because just the way we have everything set up. I hope I'm right about that, guys. Anyway, I don't want to keep babbling. I'm just going to go over here and get these put in, because I want to set the engine in there. Now, we have all heard the horror stories about these F-body mounts. You know, just about everybody you ask, they say you have to take the lower control arms off to get to the inside of the K member to get these loose. I am going to do my best to avoid that. So I've got an assortment of 15mm wrenches. I've got a 15mm socket. I've also got my little 1/4 inch impact with a 15mm socket on it. I've got some swivels. I'm hoping I don't have to use them. It's going to be really hard for me to get camera angles on all this, but I'm going to do my best to, if I can't show you exactly what's going on, I'll do my best to show you what I had to do afterward. Now, I'm actually going to start over here on the passenger side, simply because this is the side that everyone says is the hardest to do. So I hope you guys can see, I'm on this very last bolt here, and this very last bolt, there's actually an access hole. Yeah, there's actually an access hole right behind it that I think I may be able to use to get a wrench on. I'm gonna have to go under there and kind of look and see what's going on. All right, so here's the first bolt. You can see that, guys. I had to reach in through the hole and hold the bolt with the open end of the wrench there, or hold the nut and buzz the other side off. I'm gonna tell you right now, you can do this with, obviously you can do this with just ratchets, but it is gonna be a pain in the butt trying to hold these nuts in here and ratchet them out, because they're gonna wanna fall. So I'm just letting you know, one of these guys is a pretty good idea here. Now on this other one, I'm gonna have to kind of look around and see how I can hold on to it. And again, I'm just trying to avoid taking the A-arm loose, guys. Like, I don't want to have to take all that crap apart if I don't have to. Alright, so it looks like I can go in through the same hole with the open end wrench and hold on to this one. Sure enough. And I did drop the nut that time, but it fell right out. And guys, as soon as I get this last bolt out, I'm going to bring the camera down here and I'm going to show you the holes that I went into to get to these. There is a small hole like this big that is almost directly under this back top bolt in the K-member here. And I actually went in through that small hole and I used the open end of the wrench to hold the nut for this bolt and this bolt here. So so far I have not went in through the K-member hole, but I think I may need to go in through the K-member hole to hold the nut for this bottom bolt here. Give me just a second and I'll figure that out. Alright guys, so we got that one out. I'm moving over to the driver's side. And this is the side everybody says is supposedly easier, but we'll see. It's probably just easier because everybody's right-handed. It's probably not actually easier. Keep in mind, getting them off is usually a lot easier than putting them back on. So over here on the driver's side, I'm actually able to get a socket and a swivel on the nut for this back bolt here. Can't see, obviously I can't see to get my gun on here. Out. Now let's see what we can get on the back side of this bolt. That's going to be probably another opened in wrench job there. We can do just like we did on the other side. We can reach through that same small hole and put our open end wrench on it. And she's right out. And then this bottom one, it seems to always be the most awkward to get something on. You pretty much just have to put your wrench straight onto it. I'm going to elaborate, there we go. I'm going to elaborate when I get these off as to exactly what I'm doing, guys. But right now, I'm just trying to actually get them off, and then we'll talk about it a little bit. Uh-oh. Did he not come out? All right, guys, you're under the car with me. I want to kind of elaborate, and I can't really put this camera in a position where you can see, but if you look right here, this is the control arm opening right here. It's like that on the other side too. And then you have, under the control arm opening, you have this hole right here. And I wanted to kind of do this, and I wanted to kind of show you me taking those off in real time. I didn't want to interrupt with camera breaks because I wanted to just to show you that it's really not as hard as people make it look to get these out. I didn't want you to be like, oh yeah, how much time was there in between cutscenes? So anyway, and you got your hole over here. All right, so these top two bolts here, you can access both of them through this little bitty hole here. Now you can't just go in and put a box end on them. It's not that easy. You have to use the open end, and you can't really put them on like this. You got to kind of stand up, you know, if you can see that, like this, and you know, kind of slip your box end on and hold them kind of like that. But you can get them off that way. One of them I was actually able, on the driver's side, I was actually able to use the swivel socket to get on, but I could have just used the wrench on that too. And then the bottom hole, you can actually see it right there. You can see where the nut used to be. That was the bottom hole, and I was able to go in through here, and the same thing. Yeah, wear safety glasses, guys. I'm not wearing them right now. I'm surprised my wife hadn't said anything to me yet, but wear safety glasses because crap's gonna fall down in your face. But this hole, you can kind of just go in like that and put it on the nut like I just showed you. You know, you can't always get it on from the side, guys. Sometimes you just have to come kind of straight down on the nut and hold it like that. And while you're not going to break a nut loose that way, it is going to keep it from turning while you're taking the bolt out from the top side. So at this point, what I'm going to do, I'm going to get out from under the car. We're going to set our mounts on here, try to use these janky instructions. Sorry, UMI, I have to dog on you for the instructions because, yeah, they suck. But I'm going to try to use these instructions and figure out what set of bolt holes we're using up here. And as soon as I figure that out, I'll be right back. So I'm going to start over here on the driver's side, and we probably are going to have to relocate our brake line too, guys. Probably going to have to take these mounts, these bolts out, and just bend it and tweak it to come forward to clear these. But again, these instructions that UMI sent, in addition to being backward of what they say, the picture is also very, very fuzzy, which is making it kind of difficult for me to figure this out as far as what bolt holes to use. It looks as though they're telling us, okay guys, this is messed up because the bolt holes that are shown in this picture from UMI, like, this doesn't even look like the same cross member. This is kind of confusing. I'm gonna have to think about this for a minute. Okay, so after getting this deciphered, this is the best I can figure out. Driver's side, those are the holes it calls for to use on the driver's side. Okay, so that all seems right. It looks kind of crooked to me. Now I've not put the nuts on the back side yet. I've just slid the bolts in to hold it. But that looks a little bit crooked to me, but it may just be an optical illusion. But this does make sense because, you know, it's slid all the way forward, and that would allow it to come back for a full inch of adjustment, you know, like the ad says for these mounts. The problem is on the passenger side, as you can see, I've got those two bolt holes in. Well, it calls for a third bolt hole right there where it does not exist. So I think what I'm going to have to do is just go ahead and tighten these down, tighten down the bolts that I have, and then I'm probably going to have to drill that extra bolt hole there and maybe drill a fourth bolt hole. It does give you an option to put a fourth bolt in these plates here. So I'm going to try to figure out a way to fish my nuts up there and tighten all that down, and we'll go from there, guys. All right, guys, I'm not even going to sugarcoat this. This was the most aggravating thing I've done in a while. And so here's the deal. The mounts are in. I've just got to finish snugging up the bolts on the bottom and the nuts on the top. I'm going to go over that here in just a second, what I had to go through. Over here on this mount, now I used the holes that UMI recommended, but the hole that they recommended right there is non-existent on my cross member. So here in a few minutes, I'm going to go ahead and drill. Well, actually not in a few minutes. What I'm going to do is, before I drill any freaking holes in this cross member, I'm actually going to set the engine in and make sure it's going to line up, because it may just be an optical illusion, but it almost appears to me like these mounts are slightly crooked. And something else that I noticed, even though I use the same holes and I've got both mounts slid up as far as possible, it seems like the passenger side mount, just judging from the overhang on the cross member or on the K member, it seems like the passenger side mount is a little bit further forward on the K member than the driver's side mount. So hopefully that's not going to be an issue. But before I go drilling any holes, I am going to have to, set the engine in and make sure the engine is setting level and where it's supposed to be, because yeah, this was aggravating, guys. The screwed up, like, don't get me wrong, just switching engine mounts on these cars is kind of a aggravating pain in the ass to do, but also having to deal with really jacked up instructions from UMI just made this task all that much more difficult. Now, here's the deal. The bottom bolts on both sides, I was able to put them in from the top, just like they were from the factory. I put those in from the top. It wasn't a huge deal getting the nut and washer. So here's what you do. You've got your bolt with your washer that went in from the top on that one. And then you have to get a washer, a lock washer, and a nut on the back side of it. So here's what I did, guys. This was through. I dipped this in grease, and I was able to reach up through the control arm mount. I was able to reach up there with a couple fingers, and once this was dipped in grease, I pushed it on, and the grease stuck it to the back side of the K member. Then I took this guy, I also dipped it in grease, slid it on, and the grease stuck it to the back side of that. Then I took my nut and I held it with a pair of needle nose pliers and, held it up there while I reached around the K member and turned the bolt to get it threaded. That worked pretty well. I used my 14mm wrench. Oh yeah, the new hardware that UMI gives you is 14mm now. So after you get the old mounts out with the 15mm, you're going to need to break out all your 14mm sockets and shit. So I held it with the wrench just like I told you, kind of from the top, and I got the bottom one tightened up. Now, here was the issue. There was absolutely no way in hell. Guys, I've been out here for hours now. All right? Not even going to lie to you. I'm not going to lie and be like, here's the 45-minute job. Bullshit. Okay? I've been out here for hours trying to feed, like trying to figure out a way to get the washers and the lock washers and the nuts stuck on from the bottom side. It was not freaking happening. Okay? So what I ended up doing is I took those back out, and I'm going to show you two different ways to do this. I have this guy. This is, I guess he got it from Snap-on. My cousin Christy, her husband Mitch, gave this to me a couple months ago. So Mitch, if you're watching this, thank you. Lifesaver, saved my sanity. So this actually was the exact same size as my bolt that I had to feed through. So what I did on the bottom bolts is I took them back out. I took my magnet here and I ran it down from the top, you know, like right down from the top through the K-member, and it ended up poking out like right over by my coil springs. Then I simply took my bolt with the washer on it. I stuck it to the end of the magnet just like that, and I just slowly pulled it up, you know, back up through the K-member. Once I got it up, I just kind of held pressure on it over, you know, held pressure on it over with my finger to hold it in place while I slipped on my washer, my lock washer, and started threading my nut on here. So that's why the two bolts on the top are upside down, because I had no choice, guys. That is the only way I could get that shit to work out. I told you I was going to show you two ways to do this. If you don't have a magnet, you can accomplish the same thing with some fishing line. You know, just run your fishing line down, catch the fishing line on the bottom side of the K-member by the coil spring, pull it down, and you can probably tie the fishing line around the end of your bolt here, and then just pull the bolt back up through with the fishing line. So that's another way you could do that if you don't have one of these little fancy bendy magnet guys here. So I did the same thing with the one bolt that I have over here. All I have left to do, the top, or I mean the bottom bolt on each side, I've already tightened the shit out of that. So all I have left to do at this point is reach up, hold a wrench on the back side of the bolts there, and use my impact to tighten down the two top ones here and the one top one here on this side. So after that, I guess I'm going to try to set the engine in and, you know, see how everything lines up. Now, this is not the permanent engine install, guys. We're just putting it in here to see how everything lines up. If everything lines up right and I'm able to get my new engine mount bolts through here and actually bolt the engine in, then I'm going to take it right back out, and we're going to drill a hole right here at the front of this slot to coincide with that bolt there. See, here's the deal, guys. Like, the driver's side has the hole up here and then a hole right down from it. The passenger side, according to the UMI instructions, mine should have one. It should have that other bolt right here too, bolt hole, but it does not have that. So, you know, we're gonna have to put that in there. Here's the thing, guys, and I cannot stress this enough, okay? If the coil springs are out of the car, you could literally just reach in with your hand, reach right into the K-member, and this would be just a total piece of cake. So my advice to you is, if you're doing this swap, when you go to put your mounts on, if you plan to lower your car or to install coilovers or anything in the front, this is the freaking time to do your mounts as well, guys. It'll save you a lot of drama. Just do them while you've got your front suspension apart. That's going to be the absolute easiest way to do this stuff, okay? This was a struggle. It really was. Like I said, I'm not even going to sugarcoat it and tell you, you know, this is a 30-minute or 45-minute job. This shit was a pain in the ass, guys. And I've got a lot of tools at my disposal. It didn't matter what universal I used, anything. Getting the old mounts out was not a big deal. Honestly, if you just start and feed them through the top like I did, it's probably not that big a deal now that I think about it. But all right, guys, I got the engine mounts tightened down. Now that they're tightened down, we can actually take our brake line and put it back in the original location. We just needed it out of the way while we were working here, but you can see it's going to go over the top of the engine mounts. So we're going to put it right back in the original location now with the original clips and tighten those down. Okay guys, so that's it. The engine mounts are in. Probably in the next video or two, we're going to go ahead and get the engine set in. At that point, you know, I'll determine if I need to drill more holes, if these are going to line up properly. But as it is, this is the engine mounts installed exactly the way UMI said to install them, minus a bolt hole that did not exist. Now I do want to say, I actually stated this earlier, that mount is a hair further back than this mount is, even though we use the same sets of holes on them. But I think that's on purpose from UMI. This mount is actually a bit thicker. So here's the deal, guys. These are meant to use with the 98 through 02 Camaro and Firebird, you know, the V8 model. It's meant to use with their engine mounts, okay? That would be these guys here. And the funny thing about the 98 through 02 Firebird and Camaro engine mounts is they are offset, guys. So if you look, I hope you can tell from the photo, but the mount actually offsets more on one side than it does on the other. So what happens is the mount on the driver's side ends up trying to push the engine forward. The mount on the passenger side ends up trying to push it back. Now, if both these mounts were in the identical location, your engine would be sitting crooked. So I'm thinking that it's possible maybe UMI incorporated that little nuance into the design of these mounts. And maybe that's why they look kind of offset sitting in the vehicle. Maybe that's to correct the offset that is caused by the 98 through 02 Camaro and Firebird mounts. That's just my theory, guys. Like I said, we won't know till we get the engine set in. So that's the install of the UMI engine mounts, the LS swap mounts for 82 through 92 Camaro and Firebird. Like I said, if you do it the way I did, where you just pull the bolts up from the bottom, it's not going to be that difficult. It was not difficult at all getting the old mounts out. Once again though, I do feel like UMI needs to maybe go back and rewrite those instructions, clean them up, maybe post clear or put clearer pictures in the instructions as well. Other than that, it looks like a quality product, guys. I'm hoping that when I do set this engine in, maybe next weekend, that everything lines up and we're good to go. But for now, that's all I got for you. So again, thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button. Share this video if you know someone who needs it. Now get out in the garage, get something done, and I'll see you next time here on Bad Luck Garage.